back again. How are you all? Got an interesting one tonight, haven't we?
Something different.
Something very different. Yes. When you think about what you would do what would you do if you were president? I'm going to cut that bit because there's a big gap there. But
no, you can leave it.
What would you do if you became the president and you could release any information, be it the UFO cover-up or anything like that, right? That's the basis of what we're talking about tonight. But there's a famous interview that Art Bell did years ago with John Lear, and it's actually called the John Lear Test. And if anybody has not heard it, we're going to play it in a minute in its entirety. And all credit goes to Art Bell for this, Coast to Coast AM, brilliant show. It will certainly make you think about it. So what we will do, we will just jump straight into it. We will play the audio for you, and then we will talk about what would you do, okay? So for anybody who has never heard this before, this is the John Lear Test.
Be true, making your judgment based on that, okay? Right. All right, in that case then, here it comes, the infamous Lear Test. So, okay, let's say the government chose me. They were going to use me as an outlet to release this information. Let's just say they did that and they took me to a briefing. Then what, John?
Okay, we whisk you to, or they whisk you to Washington, D.C. You get limoed to this building, beautiful building. You go up into this room. They say, Art, you're the guy. If you give us the go-ahead, we're going to release everything we know to the public. And if you decide to go ahead, all major networks will be provided with information on all aspects of the cover-up. No type of information will be withheld because of the deal for immunity for all participants of the cover-up provides that nothing, no artifact, no piece of information be withheld. So here's what happened, Art. And of course, this we'll use some videos and stills. Our first UFO recoveries are in the late 30s. We made a couple in the beginning of the 40s, and then came Roswell, which the public found out about. We got 2 live aliens from Roswell. One died shortly thereafter. One lived until 1956. And we found out that so far there are 18 different alien species that we know about monitoring Earth. Some are good, some are hostile, most are indifferent. We found out that we are the experiment or product, if you will, of an alien race who we never met and really don't know who they are. All we know is that the Greys are cybernetic organisms, glorified robots, if you will, who work here at the behest of their employers, monitoring us through abductions. We were never able to find out what the experiment is all about, except that we have been externally corrected about 65 times, and they, the aliens, refer to us as containers. There has been speculation that the souls our bodies contains is the reason for the experiment, but nothing has been proven or determined. Since 1938, we have lost over 200 aircraft to UFO hostilities and thousands of soldiers in all kinds of different kinds of action with aliens. Since that time, several 100,000 civilians have disappeared with no trace. Several thousand were eliminated by us because of their chance encounters with aliens, which we could ill afford to have publicized. A slightly more frightening phenomenon known as human mutilations have occurred on a regular basis and are similar to the cattle mutilations in that the humans are taken from the street, so to speak, and returned to the same area about 45 minutes to an hour later, with their rectums cored out, their genitals removed, their eyes removed from their sockets, and completely drained of blood. In all cases, it appears that the mutilation procedures occurred while the persons were still alive and conscious. One of our scientists speculated that apparently the human specimens had to be alive for the samples to be worth anything. Abductions occur on a daily basis throughout the United States to at least 10% of the population. And when we first became aware of this, we protested to the little gray being that we held in captivity at the YY-2 facility at Los Alamos, but a deal was struck that in exchange for advanced technology from the aliens, we would allow them to abduct a very small number of persons, and we would be periodically given a list of those persons abducted. We got something less than the technology we bargained for and found that the abductions exceeded by 1 millionfold what we had naively agreed to. In 1954, President Eisenhower met with a representative of another alien species at Muroc Test Center, which is now called Edwards Air Force Base. This alien suggested that they could help us get rid of the Greys, but Eisenhower turned down their offer because they offered no technology. At this point, it became apparent to all involved that there was no such thing as a God, at least as the public perceives God. Certainly some kind of computer recorder stores information, and an occasional miracle is displayed by the aliens to influence a religious event. So this so unnerved Eisenhower that he had "In God We Trust" put on paper money and coins and put into the Pledge of Allegiance to reaffirm the public belief in God. Shortly after this, it was determined at meetings between the U.S. and Russians that the situation was serious enough that a Cold War should be manufactured as a ruse to divert attention of the public away from UFOs and towards some other scary threat, the H-bomb.
Wow.
It was also decided to keep the ruse secret from any elected or appointed official within both the U.S. and Russian government, as long as it took so long to vet these officials, and the ruse was easier to manage if the top people didn't know about it. In the late 1950s, NASA was formed to compartmentalize, containerize, and sanitize information from all space platforms and vehicles. We sold NASA the public, claiming that all information would belong to them. Actually, they got very little, and even that was highly sanitized. Our first efforts were to keep the public from learning about Venus, and that it's a similar planet to Earth, and that its population is very similar to us, but more technologically advanced. We have learned a lot from them. Starting with the Russian Venera 1 and U.S. Mariner 2, we made Venus look like a lead-melting volcanic surface spewing sulfuric acid into a pressurized atmosphere 90 times that of Earth. And was often the case we overdid it and wondered why no one ever asked how a parachute survived a descent into 800-degree air. We set up operations in Pine Gap, Australia to preclude any prying eyes trying to figure out what we were up to. We regularly eliminated, through extreme prejudice, anybody who was part of the operation and made the least little tiny threat about disclosure or satisfaction with the operation. Any space mission that included Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Mariner, Voyager, Clementine, and all the rest, all data initially came transmitted to Pine Gap, and then it was relayed to JPL or wherever after the sanitizing. We had a little trouble with amateur radio operators, but we figured out when they figured out how they could intercept these signals, but we managed to deal with that. When the Russian threat began to fade, we introduced Vietnam, which kept the public occupied for over 10 years. The cover-up and the personnel to run the operation began to get bigger and bigger and required more and more money. We were enforced to inflate the defense budget, which soon was not enough. Then we got into the drug business, which was still not enough. We were the ones that looted the savings and loan industry and Wall Street to boot. It is so out of control now, most people want immunity and want out. But there is so much secrecy and so many double and triple blinds in place that it is unlikely that this thing can ever be dismantled. And even if you give us the go-ahead to spill the beans to the public, it's unlikely they will get anything more than, yes, we recovered a flying saucer, and yes, there was an occupant, but that's all we're going to tell you. So go ahead and roll the tape for Mr. Bell. What you see here are the human mutilations look like. That one was a male about 27 years old. Now that film is of dead aliens being pulled from the wreckage of their craft that crashed in Atlanta, California in the 50s. That craft you see over there was over 250 feet in diameter and had to be buried on the spot. That site is in Utah near Dugway Proving Grounds. The object that you're looking at now is the Kecksburg Acorn, which was brought to Wright Pat in the middle 60s. There's Frank Drake trying to force information out of a being tied down to that stretcher. He was supposedly from Tau Ceti. These pictures you're looking at now are the structures on the moon. That's the tower in Sinus Medai. It's over 7 miles tall. And that thing there is what we call the Colossus of Agurum in Mare Crisium. We don't know what it does, but the machine itself is bigger than Brooklyn, New York. Now, those are videos of the domes covering the craters. You can see that some are in a very advanced state of decay. Now, these are 5-second slides of the 18 different alien species we are looking at. That one there is the most gruesome looking. The guards at one facility are carefully indoctrinated over a period of several months, being shown pictures similar to, but not exactly like the alien. Only when they have been acclimatized, so to speak, of the horrible-looking beings are they allowed to stand in security positions. before these acclimatations were done, we had 2 guards die of a heart attack as these aliens came down the hallway unexpectedly. And this last clip is of the Kennedy assassination. You've heard of the second gunman theory. Well, this is the second camera that recorded exactly what happened. We had 4 gunmen. And the bottom line was Kennedy had to go. He insisted on releasing what little alien information we had told him about, and he was trying to withdraw troops from Vietnam, which we were using as a diversion for the public. After the Kennedy, we never told any president anything. Nixon knew because he was briefed as VP in 1952. That's how he knew where to take Jackie Gleason to Homestead Air Force Base to see the alien bodies we had storage there. And that's about it.
What do you think of that? It's interesting stuff, isn't it?
Oh, even Jackie Gleason?
You'd be surprised how many people know more than what they're supposed to.
And that just goes back to the episode that we just had as well, with Skinwalker Ranch saying about with Utah and the big spheres,
the
ground.
UFO crash that was that big, they had to bury it on site. And
then that goes back also pushing into Dugway Proving Grounds, where I've said to you previously about what's his name? He has his own and he's been disclosing things about UFOs for ages. Had a mental blank now.
Oh, no, you're talking about.
Oh, wait a minute.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
And he's been saying the same thing about using Dugway Proving Grounds rather than Area 51. And then
But wait a minute. We're talking about. I'm sorry. I'm stuck on Jackie Gleason. We're talking about the same Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners?
Yes.
What the fuck?
Yes, exactly. And
I knew this guy was big and famous during his time. I didn't know he was important.
He's not. But
so how is he even involved?
When you are running in certain circles, it's not about being important. It's about knowing somebody who has access.
Not just that, it's scapegoats as well.
And having
someone to blame it there.
Yeah, and having an interest in it. And yes. What interested me was when he was talking about the machines on the moon and the this and the that. One of the things that's massive on the moon is you look at all the craters, right, on the moon. There's all different size craters and everything. But have you noticed, when something hits that makes a crater that big, you would think it would go deeper, wouldn't you? If you have a look at every crater, the shadow on the rim of every crater is about the same depth. What's underneath it that's stopping those big hits going deeper? Because they should go deeper.
The rest of Hollywood that's stopping it.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about the machine. They're talking about the machines on the surface. Right? They're talking about the machines on the surface. What is underneath the surface of the moon? And if there's stuff underneath the surface of the moon, is the moon really a moon? Because there are reports in ancient tribal community. I can't remember what civilizations they were, but they talk about a time before the moon turned up in the sky. And that's
the same stuff that's inside the ground, inside the triangle.
Ooh, yeah, some really cool stuff. Now, going back to what I said right back at the start, you've just been made the president of the United States. You're an avid UFO person. You want to tell the world. You want to find out all the information about it, right? And then you want to disclose to the world, so put it out there so everybody knows. They play that tape for you. What do you do?
I mean, this is on another level. I've never heard this before. I mean, we're talking about how even the assassination was orchestrated. How if certain people aren't with the idea, they get taken out. I mean, we're talking about that they decided to stop letting presidents know after Kennedy. So, I mean, this is... makes you wonder why even bother voting.
Well, you have the option. We get fined if we don't vote over here.
But then that comes full circle round to the major intelligence community, which is higher than the FBI and the CIA.
Wow. I mean, jeez.
That's I mean, as much as you say you'd want to release all this information, but then it's like, hang on, they're admitting that they've taken people out because they're not doing what they want them to do.
Well, that's what he was saying. He said if we're going to release it, we're not going to hold anything back. Yes, some stuff might be sanitized for obviously for national defense situations and things, stuff like that. But they're going to release everything. Do you let them know about all these different things about people being abducted, about the coring of their rectums and things like that, and the sheer number?
You'd have mass hysteria.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about mutilation of people, and
yes.
it is basically higher up saying, "Yeah, go ahead, you can do it."
Well, that's exactly what he said. He goes, they had an agreement that you can take so many people so long as we get technology from it. That's not playing cricket. That you can't say, yeah, you can take. There's actually really good one. I love Doctor Who. You can see the TARDIS on the thing in the background, and I'm sure Jeremy will put his little sound effect on at some point real soon. But no, he's not going to do that. Okay, fine. Well, there's an offshoot show of that called Torchwood. If you ever get a chance, look it up. It's probably on BBC America or something like that. Look up Torchwood Season 3. It's called The Children of Earth, right? And that is centered around, in the 60s, alien race turned up and they ended up taking so many kids, and they weren't seen or heard from ever again. They just thought, all right, to save the human race, you can have your 10, 12 kids, that's fine. But the premise of this whole this third season of Torchwood, it's all about the one story. It's about 5 episodes long. It's one full story from start to finish. These aliens come back. We want 10% of the world's population of children. So 10% of the kids from the world, they want all of them. And I'm not going to go into details. If anybody wants to watch it, it's not bad. I mean, it's Doctor Who. It's a Whovian type thing. It's science fiction, British science fiction. I enjoy that stuff. It's definitely worth a look. But the question that comes up in that is that it was the British government that made the deal to save the humans, but they've come back later on and they basically threw England under the bus and turned around and said, but you made a deal for it before. And it's about the other nations going, what is this? And the turmoil that can come from something like that. And then from that tape that you just heard, the John Lear test, how they said, we made a deal that you could abduct so many people. What faith would you have in your government if they turn around and say, you can just take people at random and do these nasty things and we're not going to do anything providing we can get technology out of you?
Well, considering that all the tests they've done, like MK Ultra and the rest of it, I don't think it makes any difference whether it's for themselves or for something else.
No.
And people know about it.
But
how many people are up in arms about MK Ultra?
Even MK Ultra, that is not on the scale that.
No, it's not. But how many people are upset by it? Half the people don't even know about it, and it's still open information you can get.
Well, there is, and it's.
I've never heard of MK Ultra.
Oh, you need to look up. Need to look that one up.
It happens.
Yeah, you know that look on your face when you were hearing some of that stuff in the John Lear test and the Jackie Gleason, and you heard that and you were like.
Have you watched the movie? All right, so it's a bit here nor there. Have you watched the movie Pineapple Express?
Yes.
So you know at the start when they're in the underground bunker and they're having drugs and testing people and talking, that's on a tangent of MK Ultra. That's the facilities that they were at supposedly.
Yeah.
Wow.
But a lot worse things happen than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Your government's corrupt.
All the governments are, and you got to remember, all the governments are run by the bloody secret New World Order up at the top.
Major intelligence community.
Yeah, nah. There's nothing intelligent about it.
How old was this recording?
That was, Art Bell died in the early 2000s, and it was, I think that was in the 80s or the 90s. I think it was in the 90s when John Lear interview happened. I didn't listen too much to Art Bell when he was on Coast to Coast. I came in when he was doing Midnight in the Desert, and I listened in every day, except Saturdays, because obviously with your time difference and everything, I would just listen, because the Midnight in the Desert was a 4-hour podcast 5 days a week. Can you imagine how much goes into that? Yeah, I know.
But they had pretty cool guests though.
Art Bell, he is the kingpin of paranormal radio, really, you know. Mm-hmm. And the sheer number of people that he spoke, there's so many different stories. If we went through some of Art Bell's backlogs, we could fill ourselves up for ages with different stories and whatever. He's spoken to so many people, but like I said, I came in Midnight in the Desert, and the John Lear Test played fairly early in that, so I would say it was in the 90s when it was recorded. I'll have to have a look and see if I can find it. I don't think it's on here.
So
no, it doesn't tell you the date.
I actually didn't realise that John Lear was a pilot.
Yeah. And
his father was the founder
Learjet.
Learjet and Bombardier Learjet, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I didn't realise that until then. So John Lear had passed away on March 29th, 2022.
Wow.
It was 79.
Well, we're not going to be able to ask him on the show, unfortunately.
No.
Not unless we do a Ouija board session. So we could knock a few out in one go. we could do some sort of a psychic Ouija board session and bring John Lear in, and God, can you imagine what that would spell out? Jeez.
So you can kind of, after listening to that, you can kind of have some sort of feel for those people like Bob Lazar.
But even Bob Lazar,
and then you got
he wouldn't have access to that kind of information. He would know about the different in relation to what he's worked with, but everything else would be speculation to him.
But to a degree, like Stephen Greer and Bob Lazar, you kind of have an idea of what they've got behind them with what they've worked with the facilities and the technology they've worked with, and they're not allowed to say a lot for the same sort of reason.
No. And you talk about Steve Greer. He is 100%. I was going to say he is 100% sure that he's going to get taken out at some point.
Yeah. Well, he even said in interviews. He goes, he is that certain that someone's going to try and take him out. He has a dead man switch.
Yeah.
The moment he is dead, everything's uploaded. Everything that he has ever worked on and all the information he ever has will be out there for everyone.
And that would absolutely scare the shit out of.
It would cause mass hysteria and pandemonium.
Yeah.
They thought COVID was bad. This would be worse.
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. For people like us, it would be
in a sense of mistrust of the government. People overthrow the government. They run everyone out. That's it. They're gone.
Yeah. Definitely. It's like I did the episode on remote viewing. I think it was a few weeks ago, something like that. And there was an interview on BBC TV with Uri Geller, and he was talking again about the JFK assassination, and he picked up so much information, and this was all to do with Operation Stargate. Then he was sent as a spy to South America and stuff like that, and to the point where Jackie Onassis met with him, and he told her everything, and even she said, don't share this, because apparently the truth about the JFK assassination would bring down more than one government. It is that shocking, and it's not who you would think it is. That he wouldn't go past that. He said it's not the Russians like everybody thinks, which kind of then makes you think, okay, well, is it an inside job?
It leaves only one major major group. Who owns the world banks? That's all it could be.
Yeah. And another thing, I used to love this TV, and I have mentioned this before on the show before, but there was a TV show in the 90s called Dark Skies about a couple that I think he was like a political person, and she was his missus. It's set in the 60s, while that was just as Kennedy was coming in, I do believe. So the early 60s, because obviously we lost him on the 22nd of November 1963. So it all happened before that, and it ended up finishing at that point. And what it was, all the information that they gathered actually worked its way to John Kennedy, and Kennedy was going to blow the lid on the alien conspiracy, and that's why they couldn't have it.
They blew his lid.
Because aliens are among us, according to this TV show. So it's obviously it's a science fiction TV show, and emphasis on the word fiction, but it's an interesting proposition as what they've put forward as to why he was assassinated. Obviously, at the same time, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis and other things going on as well, but the UFO thing was pretty much heading towards its peak around the early 60s, because you had obviously Roswell in 47, you had those other incidents through the 50s, and then into the 60s, and then of course you had the what's it called, Battle of Los Angeles, the war over Los Angeles, where all those UFOs were spotted that night, and they actually fired guns at them and stuff like that. It's definitely.
Wait, you talking about the movie?
No, I'm talking about real. The movie was good. I enjoyed the movie. No, I'm talking about the.
Wait, there was a battle.
The war of. It was a one night thing. A whole load of UFOs over Los Angeles, and the Americans fired at them from the ground. If you look it up, you can actually find the newspaper. You can actually find the newspaper clippings of it.
You've just broken Fernando's brain.
Hey, all this stuff is interesting to me.
How is it you are learning all these fringe history about your country from people in Australia?
It's weird. So
We are too preoccupied with bull stuff.
Oh man, I've been researching this for so long. I've got so much stuff stuck in my head. It's
What's weird though is with the accounts that he specifically said. I know it's the test that he made, but the accounts that he specifically said with X amount of extraterrestrials found, the greys, the whatnot, and everything else. Stephen Greer goes into very, very great depth about that sort of stuff, and it's nearly word for word.
Yeah.
That just blew my head apart.
Yeah.
Because Greer said it on more than one account with different interviews as well.
Look, the potential of Steve Greer and Bob Lazar, they're both sort of, well, not really tied into other people, but
I think Greer is more of a target than what Lazar is, because they've just painted out Lazar to be this complete wacko.
Yeah, but they're still harassing him all the time now, and this is what. Right, okay.
Well, what Greer was saying
just listen for just a sec, right? If he is what they say, because they sort of wiped all of his records from MIT and Cal, or whatever it's called. I'm not sure. Caltech. And they basically erased all of his academic records and all this stuff that they've done. He has never really made any money. He's not out for publicity. He just said what he had to say, and they have been harassing the FBI and other organizations have been harassing him all of his life. Now that was in 1989, I think, somewhere around there, when he first came out as a whistleblower. He used a fake name, David or something like that, for the first interview before he actually released who he was. And I remember actually watching that live because he was shadowed out against the window and everything. But if he wasn't onto something, why are they still harassing him now? You would think that they would just let it go because he's had his 5 minutes of fame. Boom, done. The only reason they're still harassing him now is because they know he knows something and they're scared he's going to do something, so they keep letting him know that they're there. So he is a very credible person in my books. Now, back to you with the Stephen Greer.
Well, he's had, I think it was just recently in an interview he was talking about, he was speaking to one of whoever's house he was at, and they were talking about different projects that he's worked on and what greys, what weren't greys there, what had happened there, what they were looking at. and I think it was within a day, within 24 hours, he had the FBI showing up to his premises because they were listening into the conversation over phones.
Yep.
And they weren't even talking on their phone. The phones were just in their pockets.
Yep.
He goes, we absolutely had nothing to hide about it. There was nothing we were releasing to anyone, but they still rocked up anyway. It was a private conversation. They're always listening.
My phone is right there. So I don't know why they've been listening to our podcast.
And not just that, Fernando. You look at hackers, and there's one of these well-known ones that works for the actual US government now and helps them out. He says, even with your phone powered off, still traceable.
Of course.
Everything. He goes, it does not matter if it's a chip in a card or your phone. They can use it.
And
people are worried about that on Facebook.
And another thing, I don't know what it's like in America, but they've just been talking about it on the news over here this week that driver's licenses over here are like a plastic card at the moment. They're talking about doing away with them, and everybody's going to have a digital driver's license. So it's just another tie-in. Oh, I've got nothing to hide. I've got no problems, but
nothing to hide. It's the whole restricting of access though through digital means. Look at ANZ. I think it's ANZ Bank now. Just recently said yesterday or the day before that they're now closing all of their branches.
No, it's Bank West.
Bank West. There you go.
Yep.
That's
they're going
something's happening, and they're going to start hurting people, and it's.
Well, this is where I'm going with it all is. Obviously, they're talking about cashless society, so they're pushing everybody towards doing digital interactions rather than hard cash. It does away with people doing the old cashy jobs and, here's a little bit under the counter and all that cool stuff, which we've all done. But, then all of your information, everything's digital on there anyway. All your health records now are being digitalized on a central database. Your driver's license, all your driving history and everything. And of course, everywhere you go, you take your phone with you. I've got this app, right, that my extended family have got, and it tracks everybody so you can find out where anybody is at any one time. It's more of a safety thing. If somebody breaks down, it's not like we're spying on each other. But Lynn went down to their house the other day, so I was making sure that she was all good when she went down. You click on it and it tells you the speed she's doing. If you pay for the paid version, it will tell you how fast she's accelerating, if she's lead footing it or if she's taking it easy and stuff like that. This is all things you can do to keep your kids. Now, I zoomed right in on them when they were down at Erin's place, and I zoomed right in. You could see them walking around the house. You can see not specific rooms, but she's at the front of the house and she's going down the back. Because I know the layout of the house, I know she's going down that corridor, she's in this room now. That's how scary it is. And that's just an app that anybody can have. And if they want to zoom in now, they can work out right exactly where I am. And when you go into warfare type situations with some of these new systems, weapon systems that they're talking about, gone are the days of the nukes, right? They're trying to bring the nukes down and stuff like that. There was a thing on TV. They've got these drones now, which are like swarm drones. They can drop these swarm drones from a plane. They're about that big, right? They've got one explosive head in them, and they are digitally set. If they can pick up my voice, they'll home in on my voice, or they can use facial recognition, and they literally just fly straight into you. As soon as they hit you, it causes the explosive round to go off. That is targeted. So like Bin Laden, he could be out, he could have been out walking through the desert somewhere. As long as they knew roughly where to drop the bombs, they would have tracked him, got him, and killed him.
He's not dead.
I'm not going into that. We're already gone over time, but
right.
But
why would someone that's caused you so much grief, why would you throw them into the ocean and not bring them back and celebrate their death?
Yeah, but they say if you bring them back and they displayed it on TV, you'd make a martyr out of him and stuff like that. So
the Americans trained him and gave him the weapons that were needed anyway.
Yes.
Sorry, Fernando.
No.
Bloody Americans.
Believe that I mean, we're gonna end up having a episode on 9/11 anyway, so I guess we could just
Yeah, that will be coming. Yep.
If you're happy
So,
to do that,
we'll leave
I
it.
know it could be touchy, but
Possibly.
No, I'm good
But-
for it. I'm good for it.
But ultimately, where I'm going with that is everything's going digital. So your entire life is going to be accessible to anybody with a password. And your death can be accessible to anybody who has the same bloody information and access to the weapons. Because the worst thing about all of this is that shit can be hacked.
Why do you think they're trying to push for electric cars?
Well,
Anything
what was it? Somebody they were talking about that. Somebody was killed not long ago, and they reckon that their car was hacked. So that
Pushing for electric cars, because if you misbehave, we control the electricity. You can't charge your car if you're misbehaving.
or you can have an accident, and it can all happen from.
All you got to look at is the way that China's been using their social credit scoring system for the last 10 years.
Mm,
You've been a bad boy, you can't travel outside of your region.
mm,
You've been about. I think just currently they've just released. There's charging stations in China for electric cars. If your credit score is lower than X amount, you can't use the charging station. It's all coming, and people have been saying it for ages and been called crazy.
no, it's scary. It is scary. Very scary thoughts. And on that note, I think it's time for us to go, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So
Scientologists.
he said it.
There you go.
He said it. On that, it's time to
man.
go. I was going to do a quick chop out, but you're right there, Fernando. He looks like you have a seizure.
Oh, it's just crazy because the thought just came into my head.
Yeah.
You said Scientologist, and we all know that they don't really believe in God. They believe in a guy with a driver's license. But in the recording, they did mention that God isn't real, basically. So, you know, it makes you
Great.
kind of
The aliens.
wonder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Scientologists onto something?
You know what? I want to be a part of the Scientology. How much is it?
$59.99.
More than you can
Pay now,
afford.
4
More than you
payments,
can
and you get a
afford.
free set of steak knives.
Hey, speaking of that, I bought some steak knives the other day. You know, the big jumbo, massive.
And you got a free set of steak knives.
No, I had to pay for them, but I got 2 for the price of 1.
Exactly what I mean.
Actually,
you got a free set
no.
of steak knives.
I got 2 for the.
Price of 2.
Well, these were $80 a set, and they were selling them for $15. So I bought 2 of them. Well, yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, now that we're going into Demtel ad territory by we're selling steak knives, but wait, there's more. Not really. we could go for ages, but I think it's time for us to go. So, on that note, good night, fellas.
Have a good one.
See ya.